I was standing in my parents' backyard holding my 6-month-old daughter, Emma, watching the afternoon sun filter through the oak trees. It was one of those perfect September days in Portland, warm enough for short sleeves, but cool enough to feel comfortable. My wife Sarah was laughing at something my mom said near the grill. Everything felt right. We had gotten married 14 months ago when Sarah was already pregnant, and despite some raised eyebrows from distant relatives, our families had been supportive. But across the yard, my sister-in-law Jessica stood watching me with this strange expression I could not quite read. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just having a rough day. I had no idea that the woman staring at me was about to turn my entire world upside down. Before we dive into what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please drop a comment below and let me know. And if you are enjoying the story so far, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because what happened next at that barbecue changed everything. And if you think family drama cannot get worse than Thanksgiving dinner, just wait until you hear what my sister-in-law did. I should probably give you some background so you understand just how shocking everything that happened really was. I grew up here in Portland, Oregon, in a pretty typical middle-class family. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. My dad worked as an engineer. My mom was a teacher. I have 2 siblings. My older brother David is 32, 4 years older than me, and my younger sister Clara just turned 23 last month. We were always close growing up. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were a regular thing. We actually liked spending time together, which I know is not something everyone can say about their family. I met Sarah 3 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman, and we got paired up for the ceremony. Classic story, right? But there was something about her that just clicked with me immediately. She had this laugh that filled a whole room, and she was kind in a way that felt genuine, not performed. We started dating seriously about a month after that wedding, and within 6 months, I knew she was the person I wanted to spend my life with. The pregnancy was not planned. I will be honest about that. We had only been dating for 8 months when Sarah told me she was pregnant. I remember exactly where we were, sitting in her apartment on that old gray couch she had gotten from a thrift store. She was crying scared about what I would say. But the thing was, I was not scared. Surprised, sure, but not scared. I loved her, and the idea of having a family with her felt right, even if the timing was not what we had imagined. We decided to get married pretty quickly after that. Nothing big or fancy, just a courthouse ceremony with immediate family there. We figured we would do a proper wedding later when we had more time and money to plan it. Emma was born 6 months after we got married, this perfect little girl with Sarah's nose, and what I hoped was my sense of humor, though, at 6 months old, it was hard to tell. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. It is steady work, decent pay benefits for the family. Not exciting, but it pays the bills, and then some. Sarah had been working as a dental hygienist but took maternity leave when Emma was born. We were figuring it out like any young parents do. Now my brother David married Jessica 5 years ago. They had what seemed like a solid relationship. David works in real estate and does pretty well for himself. Jessica stayed home with their son Tyler, who was 3 years old at the time of that barbecue. Tyler is a sweet kid, always running around with endless energy. On the surface, David and Jessica seemed happy. They had a nice house in the suburbs, took vacations, posted smiling photos on social media. You know the type. Our family had always been close-knit. Like I said, those Sunday dinners were important to us. Holidays together, helping each other move, babysitting each other's kids. It was the kind of family where you assumed everyone had your back, no questions asked. That assumption turned out to be a mistake. After Emma was born, I started noticing Jessica acting differently around me. At first, it was subtle, little comments here and there that I tried to brush off as nothing. She would say things like, "Wow, you two moved fast, huh?" Or, "It must be interesting having a baby when you barely know each other." I tried to take it as concern, maybe just awkward attempts at conversation. Sarah and I had only been together for a total of 14 months when Emma was born, so I figured Jessica was just commenting on the timeline. But then the comments got more pointed. She started making observations about Emma's features, things like, "She does not really look like you yet, does she?" Or, "I wonder who she will take after as she grows up." At first, I thought Jessica was just doing that thing people do with babies, comparing features, making guesses about genetics. But Sarah noticed it too. After a family dinner about 2 months after Emma was born, Sarah told me in the car on the way home that she felt uncomfortable around Jessica. She said Jessica kept staring at Emma in this weird way, like she was searching for something. The weirdest moment came at Emma's baptism. We had the ceremony at my parents' church, and afterward there was a small lunch at their house, maybe 20 people total. Jessica had a few glasses of wine